Hello, my name is Mark, and I'm founder of Mind the Bird, which is an Internet of Things company. I think there's one thing we can all agree on. The name Mind the Bird is a really weird name for a company, right? Right? Everybody was thinking that? I just want to get it out there. Mind the Bird owns an international portfolio of granted and pending patents on a technology that is central to the Internet of Things. We want to use this patent portfolio to do good while helping other Minnesota companies succeed and be successful. This technology we discovered is called beacon technology. And a beacon is a small, battery-powered, wireless device that can be placed anywhere in the world. So today, beacons are about the size of a quarter or a sticker, and they're being placed in airports, retail stores, stadiums, museums. The Minneapolis Institute of Art is full of beacons. And when a smartphone is near a beacon, the smartphone can kind of see the beacon, and then the smartphone can do something. So, for example, Jenny from the University of Minnesota, her and her boyfriend go to the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and she has her iPhone, and she downloads the app from the museum. And as she's strolling through the exhibits, she's able to have her iPhone automatically update content wherever she goes, based on, because she's near these beacons. The market for beacon technology is expanding rapidly. Today there are 7 million beacons in the world. None of those have been put there by our company. The market is on track to go from 7 million beacons to 400 million beacons in the next 3 years. And 5 years from now, the global market for this type of technology is expected to be worth $50 billion. There are 360 beacon vendors or beacon service providers that are putting these beacons out in the world. And they've done a really great job at educating the market and creating awareness and some excitement. And they've invested in some important pilots and beta tests that have proven that there's substantial return on investment for putting in these beacons into these different types of buildings. And these 360 beacon vendors have really, in my opinion, they've done such a great job that some of the Fortune 500 companies are seeing this space as a space that they want to go into and enter. And we've been waiting for this day to arrive because what we want to do is we have this patent portfolio, and we want to serve these Fortune 500 companies that want to move into this space. And specifically, we want to serve the Fortune 500 companies that have made Minnesota such a great place to live and work. So we've been preparing for this day, and we really want to be able to grant to these Fortune 500 companies the ability to control the platform, the beacon platform in their vertical. So that's what we've been waiting for, and that's the end of my formal presentation. But before we move on to questions, I think there's 4 kind of odd things that I need to get out there. The first is, who is this guy, right? I'm not a scientist. I don't work for Honeywell or 3M. I've never patented anything else in my life. Right? So who is this guy that says he's got this patent portfolio? And I'll just say I happened to be in the right place at the right time. I had a problem, and I needed beacons, and they didn't exist, and I hired some tech guys, and they said it was impossible to do what I was trying to do, and I found a way to do it. And then I hired Merchant & Gould. My patent attorney's here today. I hired Merchant & Gould. Some friends and family helped me do that, and I went to a lot of these Fortune 500 companies, and I learned from them. I tried to share with them beacons, and they weren't ready for beacons, but they helped me understand what their business needs were. So I was certain to put that and make sure to design our patents around that so that we could be helpful to them and serve them. And I get it. It's funny. It's odd that I have these patents, right? That's weird, and it's okay. So another weird thing is I mentioned there's 360 vendors that are out there doing this. And I guess one question you might have is, why aren't there 361? Why am I not out there? And I think that's because I see this market as, I think it's going to be a really big market. And I think the Fortune 500 companies are going to want to move into this space. And a lot of those 360 new startups that are kind of doing this thing, that are excited about it, I think they're going to possibly get crushed by some of these big companies as they move into the space. And I don't want to be crushed. I want to serve these companies, especially the ones that have made Minnesota such a great place to live and work. So I could be wrong about that, right? I mean, maybe I should be out there and be beacon vendor number 361, but I want to be ready to serve those Fortune 500 companies if they want to move into the space and really control their part of it. Another thing that's kind of odd is you hear me talking about wanting in Minnesota a lot. Like, you probably are wondering, why doesn't this guy just go up to San Francisco or New York City, right? That's where they do this sort of thing. And I agree. It's a little bit odd. I'm all right with that, though. I'm a lifelong Minnesota guy, except for 5 months where we lived in Iowa. And I think this state has a lot of untapped potential. I think we've got really great companies that, if we think about it, really made this a wonderful place to be and live and work. And so I just want to do this here. I want to give it a shot. And but it's kind of weird, and I get that. I'm okay with that. And then the last thing that's kind of weird is, let me see the last thing that's weird. I got a note here. There's 4 things. There's at least 4 things that's weird. Oh yeah, right. It's not exhaustive list. You probably are. Somebody's probably wondering how can these other vendors, 360 other vendors, be out there doing this, right? If this guy really owns these patents, how can they do it? And I guess my response to that is, some of the vendors have contacted me and wanted to buy the patents. Okay, so that has happened. I've said no, I'm not interested in that. But it really comes down to wanting our patents to reflect what the Fortune 500 companies want. We want our patent claims to reflect what they most value. And so we want to partner with them and make sure we get the right claims, and then hopefully have those granted at just the right time. So that's kind of why, until those get granted, I can't do anything to stop the other vendors that are doing that. So those are at least 4 of the things that are a little bit odd that hopefully can help you ask better questions of me.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
So as we ask everyone, we'd like to know, what is it that this community of 1 Million Cups and our audience here can do to help you?
Thank you. Yeah, well, I need to find corporate collaborators at these Fortune 500 companies that want to do this. We first started when the 35W bridge was being rebuilt, and we incorporated a few months, 2 months before Lehman Brothers collapsed. So you can hopefully grasp how long we've been after this, and we've waited patiently so that these Fortune 500 companies could understand the space, because they didn't understand it 6 years ago when we went to them. And so I need to be able to communicate and get this message to them that I want to help. And I think what I have is so odd. I mean, there's not really a phone number I can just call and say, hey, I want to talk to the person who wants total exclusivity over a new platform, right? They don't have a number to call for that. And whenever anybody in a corporation hears the word patent, then the next step is it goes to the attorneys, and then the attorneys say, don't talk to this guy, he might sue us, right? And I don't blame them. That's a good move, but I'm actually not a threat. to these companies in Minnesota that are making Minnesota great, I'm not a threat. I want to help make them a threat to their competitors. And I think the biggest threat is actually would be inaction on their part, because if I end up not being able to do this here, they could end up on the wrong side of my patents if I have to sell them, right? So I really just have this moment in time where I want to, now's the time to be able to say, hey, if you want to do this, you want to help make Minnesota great, we'd love to participate in that. So.
Great. Let me bring the microphone around for questions.
I got a lot of questions.
Sure.
Can you touch on the technology and also the government documents? I mean, there's no presentation on us being able to look up what patents you have, what it's listed under. And are you using RFID? I mean, is there any product that you can actually give to these Fortune 500 companies?
So there, like I said, there's 360 beacon. The question was, is there actual, what technology is being used? And I would say our patents, which is what we have, this portfolio that we want to use to do good and help these Minnesota companies, our patents describe all sorts of different ways to do it. The most popular way today is to use Bluetooth low energy. Almost all of those 360 beacon vendors that are out there are using Bluetooth low energy.
So it's not RFID. Is that old technology?
Yeah, I'm not saying that it can't include that, but our Bluetooth low energy is kind of the new form of RFID, and it kind of works a little bit, arguably a little bit better. Yep. So if like you go to these places that have beacons, they're almost all Bluetooth low energy. Yeah, you bet. Yeah. Well, you could go, do like a search and find, lots of patents there. Yep. I'd be honored if you would. I mean, we put a lot of effort to try to serve these Minnesota companies. So, yep.
Side question, are they international too? You protect it internationally?
Thank you. Yeah, his question was, are these patents international? And yes, our first $100,000 of revenue came in 1 week before we had to file a national stage, and we had to turn around, and that money came in, and 1 week later it went out, because we really believed in our patent portfolio and that we had something that would be of value. And so we invested that money by filing our patents in our original 2008 patent in China, India, Eurasia, including Russia, all of Europe, Australia, Israel, Brazil, and Canada. Yep. Thanks. Yes, sir?
Okay, so I'm trying to think about the application of it now. So I was just at the Luther exhibit at the Institute, and I actually used their app. Is that what the beacon technology is?
Well, did it respond? Did the content change as you move around?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably using beacons. Yeah.
Okay, so your patent, is it firm now, or is patent pending?
A couple of our patents have been granted, but we're really looking at having a patent portfolio that's in the 50 to 100 patent range.
Okay.
A couple of them have been granted, but the ones that we're most excited about are yet to be granted.
Okay, so the Institute of Arts, for instance, is they're one of the vendors, or are they a customer of yours? Or?
They kind of. I was there when I'm not involved with the museum beacon at all. I didn't help them at all, but I was there. I visited when they launched this past summer, when they announced it. As far as I could tell, they kind of pieced it together themselves, which is fairly easy to do nowadays. You can kind of put beacons out if you would like to.
And what protects you? How are you protected from people doing that? Or are you going to be trying to serve the Institute of Arts now?
No. See, I think your question was had to do with am I going to try to stop the Minneapolis Institute of Arts for doing this? Is that what your question was?
What just protects you? What protects you from people just going ahead and doing this? Because you're such a good guy.
Nothing until those patents are granted and we have the ability to defend them. There's nothing that would stop anyone from doing that. But once those patents get granted, and if we're in a position to be able to defend those, then some of the things we've been dreaming about and hoping about for these Minnesota companies might be able to become a reality. Yep. we're really more interested in what we can do and using the patents as more of like a carrot versus like patents as a stick. It doesn't sound fun to us. We don't want to say no. We want to say yes, but let's do it this way, or let's do it to help, in these ways.
So can you tell us what's unique about your patent portfolio that's not being used today? I mean, what's the value in the portfolio that a corporation or an application that would be used for? What's the
I think you're asking. So I think you said like, what's different about our patents as compared to what's being done today? And I think if you were to read through our patents, I mean, I understand them, right? Because I wrote them with Ben's help. I wrote these, so I understand what's in them. And I don't think there is a difference between what's described in my patents and what's being done today.
So you'll eventually have to sue the people that are using your technology?
Well, I think he's asking if I need to sue these people. No, I think no, I'm not. That's not my business plan.
I think you stated before you're trying to open a door to possibilities.
Yes.
You want to collaborate with.
Yep. I want to collaborate, especially with Minnesota companies, and I'll get maybe skip through some slides here.
Because if you can make these useful, then there's more opportunity.
Oh yeah. So the beacon market. Let me skip back here. The beacon market today looks like this. If you could, we can't see beacons. The signals, you can't see them, but they look like that, and it's really pretty chaotic. And what needs to actually happen for the user experience, in my opinion, is there needs to be a company that owns retail, that understands retail, that says, we want the user experience to be this, and really define that. And then the same with healthcare or banking or building automation and security. These are very distinct, these could be platforms. And these companies that we'd love to serve, they're the ones that can help make these platforms great. They're the ones that can help make the content delivery, whether it's being pushed, the content's being pushed, because you don't want to annoy anyone, but whether the content's being pushed or pulled and finding that right mix. So we think the experts, actually a lot of them exist here in Minnesota.
But just to reaffirm, so you really don't have any unique technology that's not already being used today in the marketplace. What you're trying to do is help companies or corporations maximize the technology that's out there. And that's what I'm hearing. You're saying
the
portfolio doesn't have anything that's not already being used in the market.
Oh, there's a lot in our portfolio that's not being used. But what I think you're seeing is the market is about to hockey stick. And we'd really like to be able to serve the Minnesota companies. We'd really like to get them in that 2019 area. We'd really like to be able to have them have a competitive advantage as they try to consolidate the market.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand what your business is eventually. Are you a technology provider? Are you a device provider? Are you a solution provider? What's your end game here?
That's a really great question. So he asked, what kind of a company are we? And we're kind of a weird company because we're three things. On one hand, we want to be an accelerator. So we want to partner with these Minnesota companies. We want to give them, get them the exclusive patent rights so they can control their industry. But part of what they are going to want to do is to partner with startups that want to use beacons within that industry in new ways. And so we want to, in some ways, we want to be an accelerator to make sure those startups have a chance to do new things, right? Fun things, exciting things. We want to make sure that startup community has an opportunity to participate. So in that way, we want to be an accelerator. In another way, we want to be like a patent consortium And we also want to be a beacon tech company because there are some tools that we want to build and think are important to build that will help bring some order to this industry. But really, there's no sense in us building those before we're able to be in a position to serve these Fortune 500 companies and determine who wants to do this with us.
I have a very quick pre-question to my question. What does a physical beacon look like?
The question is, what does a beacon look like, a physical beacon? They take, the form factor can vary. So some of them are the size of a quarter, and some of them are like a sticker. Some of them are bigger, and the bigger they get, the bigger battery you can get in there. Some of them, there's hundreds of form factors. Yep.
Okay. So more of my question relates to what you thought we could do to help you. Can you be more specific about who you think and you can be specific about the name or just the industry, who would be a key Minnesota business do you think could, would be one of your first targets, or where do you think you could get the most mileage if you connect with a certain industry or company?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so to answer your question, who would be the targets, the type of company? I think in retail, certainly like a Target, they announced last year that they were rolling out beacons into 100 stores, so they're certainly aware of beacon technology. In healthcare, like either a Mayo Clinic or a United Health Group, there's certainly HIPAA rules associated with anything associated with health, and so that really needs to be its own platform and controlled by an organization that grasps what is needed for hospitals. In the banking space, certainly like a U.S. bank, there's some use cases for beacons for virtual currencies and for mobile payments and things like that. In the building automation space, I noticed on Sunday in the Star Tribune that Honeywell, in the business section this Sunday, Honeywell has this really cool application that is allowing people in these corporate buildings to adjust I'm too hot or I'm too cold. And my guess is that they're using beacon technology to do that, but I don't know. So would love, Honeywell has certainly helped make this, even though they're not headquartered here, they've helped make this state a great place to live and work. Security, I'm not 100% sure on who I would really want to partner with here in Minnesota, but I'm open to suggestions. And so those are just my ideas.
Mark, does beacon technology work equally well with both iOS and Android platforms?
So, yes.
Hi, Mark. How are you financing your business now? Do you have shareholders? Are you
So Bob's
LLC?
question, yeah, Bob's question was how have we financed the business so far, and it's been 100% friends and family investment. It's expensive to file and maintain patents. I have some dear investors who I care about deeply, and most of them really don't understand the technology all that well. They're a little bit older, but they trusted me, and I care about these people so much. I'd really love to deliver a return on investment for them. These are people I care about deeply. So. Yes, sir.
I'm back again. All right, your patents, are they on the algorithms, the code, the process, or the hardware, or maybe a multiple of that? Can you go on in a little bit into tokens and consumer security? What are you doing regarding that? Because obviously privacy is a big concern.
Yeah. So everything you just mentioned is detailed in our patents. I was allowed, my investors allowed me to spend 3 years full-time listening and learning, because I didn't know a lot of this stuff when I first discovered beacon. So they let me listen and learn to different experts. And so yeah, privacy is in there, tokenization of the codes, of the beacon codes, to make sure that that they can't be hijacked by some other apps. So a token tokenization is typically refers to, like for example, let's say a beacon shoots out code number 1, all right? And if we're going to tokenize that, sometime later, it's going to shoot out code number 2. And instead of always being static, it's going to make it different, and that makes it so that it's unique. And so that basically, if you're in a retail store, it makes it so that one of the online-only retailers can't piggyback on your beacon that hardware that you just invested in when you tokenize it.
A couple questions. What's the range of a beacon?
The range is the same range as the wireless signal, but you can get, you can actually have depth of content that changes based on the signal strength. Okay, it's not perfect. It's not, but like for example, you could have a few beacons in this room. You could have, you could get as close as 1 to 2 meters worth of accuracy, which you have to do in a retail store if you're going to interrupt anyone, because if you interrupt them and they're more than, and if it's not right in their face, then it's an interruption and it's not pleasant because you have to look around and try to figure out what just buzzed, you know, or why. So in retail, it really needs to be the range needs to be small. But in other venues, they want the range to be bigger. So it depends, but you can do all of the above.
Okay. And then going back to a previous question, there are obviously devices, but I'm not sure I understood if you are actually planning on manufacturing devices yourself.
We would love to find a manufacturer actually that if these you know, we can think of a manufacturer here in Minnesota that might want to eventually own the manufacturing space. But we're not that. We know that. And a lot of these are being manufactured in China now, the beacons that are being rolled out. But, you know, we'd love to see that manufacturing centered here too, but that wouldn't be us. That'd be a company that we'd love to partner with and let them be the exclusive, you know, hardware provider. That'd be great. It'd be fun.
I have 2 quick questions. First, what does the big leading fish represent?
What does the big fish represent? Well, in this instance, I'd actually say it's some of the Silicon Valley type companies that I think they're after the space. So some of those companies are after the space, and I think if we can have an organized group, this is meant to symbolize organization. If we can organize here, we might be able to be in a position to have what I would call a platform of platforms. You know, each of these really kind of needs to be its own platform.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
And then on your website, you mentioned recruiting corporate sponsors like the Honeywell you mentioned so that you can help accelerate startups. Are you also in a relationship with 75F in Burnsville?
I didn't hear the last part of your question. I don't have any corporate sponsors yet.
Okay, that's good to know. But you're trying to network with startup businesses and help them.
Yeah, I have an abundance of startups that want to be in this space and want to do things in these categories. And I've told them, I can't quite help you yet because I want to serve those Fortune 500 companies who I want to actually control it and work with them to help parse that out.
Your website makes it seem like you're serving small companies through corporate sponsors, so I was just confused.
And so I agree with you, and our website does say that, and I think long term that's true about us. I care so much about startups. I am a startup, so I care deeply about startups, and long term that's what I want to do. I want to protect the ability for the startups to play in these spaces. But right now, my message is this can't happen without corporate sponsors here in Minnesota. So my message right now is really heavily weighted towards I need corporate sponsors.
We have time for one more question. I just had more of a comment on his question up front about you know, what's different about what you have in the patents compared to what's actually out there. The larger question is what's already out there that was all outlined in your patents 6 years ago, right?
yeah, 6 to 8 years ago, I mean, I have to be careful how I respond to that, anything about our patents, but they're available to be read, and yeah, I think, you know, I know what's in there, and I think the future looks pretty bright.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Great.
you.
Great presentation.